Like, how do they begin to deconstruct and differentiate between, like, when you talk about wearing the athlete mask for so long in your life, and that was real, right? Like, you had a real passion for it. You still do. I mean, you're on the U.S. national handball team, so it's like there's a point at which it's real and sort of core to who you are when you're being authentic, and then it spills over into a mask. How do you help people deconstruct that process to find where those marks are?
I think it's a lot of self-discovery. It's a lot of, for me, what worked was having open conversations and asking for feedback. And when you're wearing a mask, you don't want feedback. You want to know that you're right, that your way is the right way because it's been working for you. So asking someone, hey, how do I show up for you? You know, is there anything I do that just rubs you the wrong way? Or do you feel like it's hurting our relationship? Or do you feel like I'm disconnected in any way?
How often did you have conversations like that?
Growing up, not many. But 4 years ago after this fight, I started having them every day with everyone, everyone in my life. I think, you know, here's something you can start with. You can either have an open conversation with someone and ask them to rate you. You know, whatever works for you. Hey, will you write a list of the things that you feel like work really well for me, my strengths and my weaknesses? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how open am I to feedback for you? Am I, 9 where I'm pretty open pretty much all the time? Or am I at a 2 where anytime you ever suggest anything, I push you away? Just start getting feedback from your closest friends. If you have an audience, you can ask your audience, from your family.
Did you ask your audience?
I didn't necessarily ask them to like grade me, or something like that, but I started having an open dialogue with my audience. I started sharing and revealing things. I started opening up about the things I was going through, things I was letting go from my past that had really affected me, and kind of having more like a confessional with people, with my audience of like, this is what's happened to me, this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm working on. I hope you'll stick around.
Right.
But I think asking people to write you a letter. If you can't have an open conversation, if you don't feel good about that, email someone and say, hey, I just want to get some feedback. I'm not going to get upset. I want you to speak openly to me, but could you write a list of like 5 things that I do really well, 5 things that you feel like are holding me back, and from our relationship, from my relationship with other people, and from my dreams. Start there. You're going to get so much, and say, I want you to be completely honest. Again, it's just one person's opinion, but it's their perception, and perception is reality to that person. So I try to get as much feedback as possible from my closest friends, my family. I had a one-on-one conversation with every family member.
Wow.
I took ownership and apologized for everything that I'd ever done. And I revealed all the things that had happened to me that I was terrified for them to know. And I started with this question because I was so terrified for my family and my friends to know actually who I was, things that had happened that I was ashamed of and guilty of, that I started every conversation, and I got this from a therapist friend of mine because I didn't know how to communicate correctly. I said, is there anything that I could ever do or say that would make you not love me? So I started every conversation with that because I wanted to know that I could be the most messed up person in the world and I would still have connection, and that someone would still love me, because I think at our core, that's our deepest fear, that we're not going to feel love from someone. So for me, I started with my family members. They were all like, absolutely not. Even especially my brother who went to prison, he was like, no, right away. He was like, nothing, And it was just such a healing process to say, wow, I've known these people for my whole life, and yet they still don't know certain things about me, and I didn't know certain things about them. When I actually opened up and was vulnerable, when I opened up and was vulnerable and shared things with them that no one knew for 25 years of my life, it was like the most powerful, intimate conversations I've ever had with my closest relatives, right? And then they opened up in ways that I just had no idea what had happened to them. So our relationship formed a stronger bond. Our trust and intimacy formed a stronger bond. And I was able to just let go of things that I was holding on to for years, which allowed me to move forward. So I think it's starting with having those open conversations. If you can't do that, email and ask people to write down 5 things that you do well, 5 things that you could work on, just to get feedback from people. Some things are going to land, some things aren't, but I think it's important to get that feedback.